I'm a goofy footer. I love going left. Going right is a waste of my fucking time. I'm 37 years old. I don't need to go right again for the rest of my life. I'm totally fine with that. I'm not trying to be like a well-rounded surfer. Left or nothing.
This is Andrew Schulz. You might recognize him from his podcast, his stand-up comedy, or even his new show on Netflix, Schulz Saves America. What you probably don't know about Andrew is that he likes to surf. He recently took a trip to Waco and met Rob Kelly, Kevin Schultz, and the Geiselmans. During this trip with the pros, he picked up on a piece of information. This little piece of info actually saved his life while surfing in Hawaii. Enough from me. Let's hear his side of the story.
Yeah, man. All right, so you want to get started? Let's talk.
All right, there was an incident while you were surfing Lanai recently. You want to tell us more about it?
Yeah, I almost died.
From the beginning too. We want to hear about the jet.
Yeah. That was my punishment for fake flexing. No, I was in Lanai, which is this island off of Hawaii that has no surf. It's the one island that's kind of like protected from waves. They get like a southern swell, but if you look at like where Lanai is located, the big swells in Hawaii are obviously the northern swells, right? North Shore goes off, etc. And Lanai is like in between Molokai and Maui, right? So the waves the swell has to be so big that it actually goes through that channel. And then after going through the channel, it has to wrap around the island.
Okay.
So there's never waves there. And but I was like, look, maybe there'll be waves. And I swear I got there and there was like once in a decade waves. Okay. And it's my dream wave almost. I'm a goofy footer. I love going left. Going right is a waste of my fucking time. I'm 37 years old. I don't need to go right again for the rest of my life. I'm totally fine with that. I'm not trying to be like a well-rounded surfer. Left or nothing. Okay. So I go, wow, I find a way to get out to Nick Palumbo, man. Nick got me aboard, this guy, a local guy. And I get aboard. The hotel is telling me not to go. They even told me like you're not allowed to surf. They really don't want people surfing because the takeoff is kind of gnarly, but the wave is super soft. So it's a point break and it takes off like the takeoff, if you're really going for it, is right on the coral. And if you're not going for it, it's a little bit further off and it's kind of easy. But the only way to get waves on a point break is if you're going for it, right? Like you're not going to just, there's going to be a few guys out there and unless you're going for it, you're not going to get any waves. Simple as that, right? So first day I go out, I surfed, it was fun. Second day I go out and I surf, it was fun. Third day I go out and surf, and keep in mind, there's nobody on the island that's even really surfing there that much. There was a couple guys and great dudes. They were like kind of showing me the ropes, etc. And I would just kind of position myself near them. Right. So if they were taking off literally on top of the fucking coral, I was just staying a little to the right of them and I'd be like, okay, I'm good. Right. Those guys the third day were not out. It was me and one other guy from the hotel because nobody's really thinking there's waves. And even if they're not really surfing, it's not a big surfing island culturally. Right. Yeah. So we're by ourselves in this Hawaiian point break with these perfect shoulder high lefts. I mean, it's great. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, what could go wrong? And this big set comes in and I'm kind of deep in the takeoff, but now I don't have my locals to show me where I should or shouldn't be. So I'm just trying to guess it, right? And the tricky thing about this wave is if you don't take off at the takeoff, it's actually hard to get into. So the both of us are just kind of like deciding where it is or not. And I just kind of go for it a little bit further. And a big set comes in. I paddle in, and all of a sudden, this wave just jacks up. And a thing would happen with the wave is when it was a little bit smaller, it would kind of crumble at the top. Like the wave would almost break a little at the top, and then it would kind of wall up. Does that make sense? So you almost got like a little push, and then you're in. This one, it just jacked. So I try to pop up and stick the landing. I fall. I pancake because it's shallow, and I don't want to be, just raked across the reef. I don't get hit across the reef. I'm like, okay, I got this. I'll be okay. I try to swim up to the surface, and all of a sudden my leash stalls. My hands breach the surface. The second my hands breach the surface, I blew out all my air because I'm thinking like every other time for the last 30 years of my life, when my hands had breached the surface, my head was about to pop up right after. So I go like this, I blow out all my air, but I can't get up. And I'm paddling, I can't get up. I'm kicking the reef. I'm doing everything I possibly can. And I just can't get up. And I got no more air left. And I take a breath of air, of water. Sorry. It was crazy because I went like this and I went thinking I was going to have to breathe. And I took a breath in of fucking water. And I'm like, holy shit. And then like my focus got super strong. It was weird. I went from this like state of panic to like this extreme state of focus. And I had just like one task at hand, and like everything got this, tunnel vision about like survival. It was really interesting. And in that moment, I'm thinking probably about like 1,000 different things, but it doesn't seem panicked. It's just kind of calm. It's like, here are the 1,000 things that will help you survive this moment. And I remember briefly this flash of sitting in this Mexican restaurant in Waco, Texas with Eric Geiselman, and him telling me the story of when he was at Pipe or Tahiti or something about his board getting and his leash getting wrapped around the coral, and him not being able to get to the surface, and him taking off his leash. And the way that he bent down to take off his leash was important. He goes, you can't bend from the waist down. You actually got to pull your knees to your chest. So you're pulling yourself down, but using your legs. That's stronger. And I literally have maybe seconds left of air. And in that moment, instead of bending at the waist to go take off the leash, I remember what he said, and I bent the legs. And that could have been the difference. I could have been struggling, bending at the waist, but this time I was like, oh yeah, he said that. And I bent the legs and I go grab my leash. And as I'm about to tear it off, I pop up at a surface. And then, yeah, man, it's gnarly.
Did your board pop up right after, or did you have to go back down and untangle it?
No, it popped up with me. I think something happened, maybe enough yanking eventually wrapped it or unwrapped it or whatever happened, but it came up with me. And then I was able to paddle back out and get a couple more waves, because I figured if I didn't go surf immediately afterwards, I'd develop a fear, and I just didn't want to fear something I love so much. So
that's crazy. You actually just went right back out and were like, fuck it, I got to do this now or else I'm never going to.
Yeah, because I knew I would be afraid of it. And it was really stupid because part of my fucking toe was just hanging off. Like I had this huge cut on my toe. I was just like, and then the bottom, I was like hobbling around the resort for the next week.
Jeez.
So like, but in the moment your adrenaline's going, and like you don't feel anything when you're in the water. Like you bang your knee and it doesn't hurt, and then you get out and you're like, oh wow, I'm crippled. Like there's no way. 100%. It's like it was a scary experience, bro.
That's crazy. Eric Geiselman saved your life.
Yeah, right. That's why you gotta, these stories are valuable. I grew up in Manhattan, right? And my folks had a beach house in a place called Fire Island. So we went there for just our summer. So I would like just grow up in the water, just be surfing just every summer since I was a kid. So I love surfing. And then I even went to college in California so I could surf. I went to UC Santa Barbara. I literally like just lived on the ocean. I surfed twice the entire time I was there. I barely ever surfed. And it was so stupid. And then I would surf every time I was around waves, but I just kind of like stopped doing it. I'd go on a trip somewhere. I was in Morocco. I'd rent a board on a beach. I rent like this, big old sponge board, and I just go out there and surf. And like anytime I could get wet, I would. But just recently I've been wanting to like get back into it, and I've had this opportunity to surf these wave pools. So I went to the American Dream one in Jersey. That was so much fun. Shouts to Will Scooten, man. He was great. Whitewater Willie. He's out there surfing Mavericks right now. He's a crazy ass motherfucker. Also, the Perfect Swell guys put me up in Waco as well. So that was so cool.
I saw you get that barrel, big dog. I saw it.
It took me 5 times, man. That's the brilliance of these wave pools, is that like you can elevate your skill so quickly in the same way you can a stationary sport like basketball or something. You just repetition, whereas like surfing, you just got to hope that the wave operates in a similar manner so you can try that trick again, and it might not, and you might fuck up some part of it. But like when the wave's going to be the same way every single time, and you just got to wait in the same place, you can make your adjustments little by little. And the Geiselmans and Kevin, and Rob Kelly, they were just like, yo, just do it again. And literally nobody caught a wave, like 4 or 5 in a row. They were just like, again. And eventually I stomped a couple of them. So it was cool.
That's awesome. Because for someone like me, I never surfed a wave pool growing up. It's just you're scavenging for waves. And to be able to get into a barrel, which people in our comments are going to, give you shit. Oh, it's not a real barrel. Dude, that's That's a solid tube. You were in it, you were out of it. I've been surfing for almost 10 years and I just got the hang of that. You took like what, an hour out of your day and now you're doing it? It's a crazy step.
What I would say is, because I've like surfed my whole life, right? So I've had plenty of barrels my whole life. Not saying I'm some fucking amazing surfer or something like that, but like it's just something that happens, right? When I was younger, I was pretty good at surfing. I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I was pretty good. And like we would take trips. I surfed in Hawaii, I surfed in Puerto Rico, I surfed Costa Rica. Like I would go around. But especially when you're on the East Coast, like a barrel isn't. It's not, at least the waves I was surfing, like on a beach break, you don't know if it's going to barrel. You know what I mean? Like it rolls in, you're like, all right, maybe this one barrels, right? So you're not like practicing barrels that day. Like there are certain guys that will find like a point break that they know is going to get real shallow and they're like, maybe they can do it. But us, if it was shore break, maybe it barreled, you just got smashed. It was what it was. So like this barrel was almost more real for me because it wasn't just something like slapping you on the shoulder or like a little closeout. It literally forced you, because it kind of wedges up so high, or like it's weird. Like it basically forces you to actually surf a barrel instead of just get covered quick. Because what happened was I was pulling into it like kind of parallel to the wave, and every single time it would suck me up over. Now, if I was just surfing like someplace off Long Island, you're pulling parallel to the wave, you kind of get splashed a little bit, maybe even pop up out the top, and then you're fine. There just wasn't a force to really like affect you. But if you look at the guys that are surfing like actual waves and like sitting in the barrel for extended periods of time, their boards are almost facing the beach.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you position, like say here's the wave, if you position your board like this, you're coming up over. So that really taught me. The guys kept telling me, like, I know it sounds weird, point your board at an angle but to the beach and you're not going to get sucked over. And like 3 or 4 times finally I was like, okay, let me get this. So to me it really helped me learn.
It's a weird feeling, and I feel like getting to go to a wave pool like that is the perfect way to dial it in. It's like skateboarding. Skateboarding, you can go do an ollie. You can do it constantly. You can do 1 ollie, 2 ollies, 3, until you get it. Surfing, you might not get a wave all. You could go surf for an hour and not even get it. You know what I mean? There's just no.
Those two guys, like Kevin Schulz and the Geiselmans, like you put them in a wave pool for a day and you're going to see them do things they couldn't do when they started surfing that day. That's why the wave pools are going to change, because it removes scarcity.
Yeah.
Right? Like everybody's a dick out there because of scarcity. It's like in order for these guys to work on their craft, which is their job, they got to get waves. So they don't got time. If you're learning how to surf, they got to put food on the table. So they need that wave. And I understand that in a lot of ways. And but once you have these wave pools that are just churning out perfect wave after perfect wave, you have this place where you could like practice and really get better. And all of a sudden you're not using the same, like not taking the same like animosity out there into the ocean.
So who's your favorite surfer? You got a favorite?
Growing up, who's my favorite surfer? Man, I went through like different phases. I think there was a guy named was it Chris Ward? Was that his name?
Oh yeah. You know a lot more than people would think. You know that?
Yeah, no, I was like big into it, man, as a kid. So I was like, I was so big into it. I bought a 5.5 19 and a quarter surfboard. Like Lost, I think, put out this video called 5.5 19 and a quarter. Now everybody's riding these tiny little boards, but when I was growing up, you kind of, at least I thought the guys were riding boards around their height, or maybe even no, like around their height. And then the fishes got really popular. And like I'm probably 6'2", and I would ride like a little 5'10" fish, but that was even considered small. Yeah. And then the Florida guys, the Lopez brothers, Corey and what's his brother's name? Shea Lopez. Yeah. I think they were riding these 5.5 19 and a quarters, these tiny little boards. And now everybody's riding these little boards, but they're great. And they also really, like, they branded so brilliantly. They had skateboard branding with surfing. Like they leaned into the misfits. They leaned into like the partiers, the drinkers. They're like, we don't need the guys on the tour doing these like big, beautiful turns. I want a guy that's going to do a backflip on wind chop. I remember a video distinctly. I don't know who the surfer was, but it was a Lost video, I'm pretty sure. And they just grabbed this guy. I don't know if he was homeless, but he was like a guy who was really good. And like part of it, he's like throwing up. He's like drinking, blowing chunks, just throwing up. And then they put him in the water. but he's a guy who surfed, obviously, but they knew he was just like a misfit, you know?
Yeah.
And then they put him in the water, and this guy just starts fucking shredding, man. And I don't know where, I think it was obviously in San Clemente, right? Like all those videos would happen down there. And God, I can't remember the name of that video. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But like that era of surfing was just so cool to me. It felt like something new was happening. You know, it felt like the Dogtown and Z Boys, if you will. You know,
Yeah.
it felt like there was this legacy of what surfing was, and then these new kids came along. They were like, "No, we kind of want to do it this way."
About that, it was very a pivotal moment. A lot of guys still are till this day are, I want to see the Lost videos. I want to see this. Kids today are putting Lil Baby in the background of their videos and shit.
You gotta evolve. There's gonna be a new generation. You gotta let that happen in the same way they like. I mean, that's so funny that the guys who were the punk rock culture changers are now looking at the new culture change like, no, it should be traditional. Like,
Yeah.
you were the guy that changed things. You fought against the system. You got to let the next generation fight against you. But yeah, man, I just remember those days, man. It was just so cool. And obviously I loved, like, Rob Machado. Is that how you pronounce his last name? I really liked him. I just thought the way he surfed was so cool. And he just had this kind of like, I don't know, relaxed style. I think there's Tom Curran. I think he was popping back then.
I don't get how you know all this and then you got one sitting behind you. Like, where's that? Where did you connect this?
I was just obsessed, man. To this day, it's the most fun that I'll have doing anything, surfing. Like, I was like, it's just, there's nothing more fun to me. I just love it. So, but yeah, man, I just watched those videos. We would just watch those videos. There was never waves growing up. We're out there trying to surf ferry wake and shit, just anything we possibly could paddle into. But in the interim, we just watch these surf videos and try to figure out how the fuck these guys were landing these things. And it was just amazing. I want to come, dude. Next time you go to the Mentawais or however the fuck you pronounce it, next time you go to one of those places, I want to go, bro. Fuck a contest. Let's just have a free surf, man. Let's go out there with a couple of those guys, Eric, Kevin. They teach us how to do airs or something, but let's do it in fucking Indo, or let's do it in the Mentawais. Let's go for it, man.